The USS Vigilant glided through the Hespera Reach, its reinforced hull gleaming under the scattered light of distant stars. Captain Amira Hayes sat relaxed in her command chair, one ankle crossed over her knee, in a rare moment of comfort. After 15 years in Starfleet and 3 as captain of this patrol frigate, she had learned to savor the quiet moments. Convoy Delta 9 passing checkpoint Zulu, reported Lieutenant Ravi Singh from the tactical station. Mining operation proceeding on schedule. Hayes nodded her dark eyes, scanning the primary view screen where asteroid mining drones swarmed like mechanical insects around massive space rocks. Protecting these operations from opportunistic raiders was essential, but rarely eventful. Maintain distance, but keep them in scanner range, she ordered. Lieutenant Voss, any chatter from the convoy? Communications Officer Samira Voss adjusted her earpiece. Standard operational dialogue, Captain. Mostly complaints about overtime and betting pools on extraction yields. A smile touched Hayes' lips. Miners never change, regardless of which system they're from. The bridge hummed with the comfortable efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Navigator Eliza Ono plotted their patrol route with quiet precision, while Chief Engineer Kaido Yamada monitored the warp core readings from his auxiliary station. It was the kind of shift Hayes preferred: professional, predictable, peaceful. That peace shattered when Ensign Jax O'Reilly suddenly straightened at the science array, his fingers dancing frantically across the console. Captain, I'm intercepting a signal. Encrypted, but the base pattern is unmistakable. Hayes sat forward. Source. It's, O'Reilly's voice faltered, his youthful face paling under the blue glow of his workstation. It's Luminary, ma'am. Definitely Luminary encryption cascades. The bridge fell silent. The Luminari were one of the oldest spacefaring races in the known galaxy, elegant, advanced, and notoriously reclusive. Humanity had attempted diplomatic overtures for decades, only to be politely but firmly rebuffed. The best Earth's ambassadors had achieved was a non-aggression pact and occasional scientific data exchanges. Are you certain? Hayes asked, already on her feet. Yes, Captain. The mathematics don't lie. This is a luminary signature. O'Reilly looked up, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. And it's an SOS. Hayes strode to his station, squinting at the flowing patterns of light and numerical sequences. Can you decrypt it? Working on it. Their systems are quantum-based, but I've been studying their mathematical principles in my off hours. His fingers flew across the haptic interface. I've got fragments. Research vessel. Celestia. Under attack by Void Marauders. Hayes' jaw tightened. Void Marauders, ruthless pirates, who preyed on frontier settlements and research outposts. Estimated time until complete decryption. 20 minutes, maybe less. Location. O'Reilly pointed to a star map projection. Somewhere in the Azurite Nebula, approximately 6 light-years from our position. Lieutenant Voss spoke up from communications. Captain, Starfleet protocol for encountering distress signals from non-allied forces is clear. We're to report it to command and await instructions. Hayes knew the protocol well. It existed to prevent patrol captains from making decisions with potentially far-reaching diplomatic consequences. Rushing to the aid of a luminary vessel without authorization could be interpreted as an invasion of their sovereign space, or, worse, as an opportunistic attempt to access their advanced technology. How much time would it take command to approve an intervention? She asked, already calculating the answer herself. At least 6 hours for the message to reach headquarters, and a decision to be transmitted back, Voss replied. Hayes stared at the slowly decrypting message. The luminary vessel could be destroyed in hours, perhaps minutes. Lives hanging in the balance while bureaucrats debated the political ramifications. Singh, what's our combat readiness? The tactical officer straightened. Shields at full capacity. Phaser arrays charged. Torpedo tubes loaded and ready. Captain Voss said carefully, Are you considering? Plot a course to those coordinates, maximum warp. Hayes ordered Navigator Ono. O'Reilly continued decryption en route. A tense silence fell over the bridge. It was First Officer Thomas Reed who finally voiced what everyone was thinking. Captain, without authorization from command, this action could be interpreted as insubordination. At best, you'd face a disciplinary hearing. At worst, Hayes met his gaze steadily. At worst, I save innocent lives and accept the consequences. That's what this uniform means to me. She turned to address the entire bridge crew. I understand the position this puts each of you in. If anyone objects to this course of action, speak now, and your objection will be noted in my log. No one spoke. Hayes felt a surge of pride in her crew. Course plotted, Captain, Ono announced quietly. Hayes returned to her command chair. Engage. The stars on the view screen elongated into streaks of light as the Vigilant leapt into hyperspace, carrying its crew toward a moment that would redefine humanity's place in the galactic community, for better or worse. The Vigilant tore through the fabric of space, its warp engines pushing to their limits. In the privacy of her ready room, Hayes recorded a message for Starfleet Command, explaining her decision, knowing full well it might end her career. When she returned to the bridge, O'Reilly had fully decrypted the distress signal. It's definitely the research vessel Celestia, he reported. Their shields are failing, and they've retreated to the inner labs. According to the timestamp, this message has been repeating for approximately 40 minutes. Hayes nodded grimly. Lieutenant Singh, prepare combat scenarios. We don't know what we're jumping into. Aye, Captain. Exiting hyperspace in 30 seconds, Navigator Ono announced. Hayes squared her shoulders. Shields up, weapon systems on standby. The Vigilant dropped out of hyperspace into a vista that momentarily stole the breath from every officer on the bridge. The Azurite Nebula spread before them a vast cloud of gas glowing with electric blue luminescence. Crystal-like formations floated within the gas pockets, refracting light into prismatic patterns that danced across the ship's hull. It's beautiful, someone whispered. Hayes had no time to appreciate the view. Scan for the Celestia. O'Reilly was already hunched over his console. 700,000 kilometers off our port bow. I'm detecting 3 ships in pursuit Marauder configuration. The Celestia's shields are at 17% and failing. On screen, Hayes ordered. The view screen shifted to show a sleek vessel with spiraling architecture, characteristic of luminary design. Its pearl-white hull was scarred with blast marks, and flickers of energy suggested shield integrity was indeed critical. 3 predatory ships with jagged silhouettes, reminiscent of ancient Earth dragons, pursued it, firing salvos of red energy beams. Those are Marauder Drakes, Singh confirmed. Heavily armed raiding vessels. Hail the Celestia, Hayes commanded. Lieutenant Voss worked her communication array. Channel open. Hayes straightened. Luminary vessel Celestia. This is Captain Amira Hayes of the Earth Starfleet vessel USS Vigilant. We've intercepted your distress signal and are here to render assistance. For several tense seconds, there was no response. Then the view screen flickered, revealing an alien face. The Luminari had humanoid features, but with subtle differences that marked them as distinctly non-human iridescent skin that seemed to glow from within large almond-shaped eyes with no visible pupils and tendrils of luminescent filaments instead of hair. This is Chief Scientist Aliris of the Celestia. The Luminari spoke, her voice melodic despite the obvious tension. Your presence is unexpected human vessel. Our distress call was not meant for... The transmission jolted as the ship took another hit. We can discuss the details later, Hayes interrupted. Right now, we're here to help. Can your ship still maneuver? Aliris seemed to hesitate, her glow dimming slightly. Behind her, other luminary researchers huddled at their stations, casting wary glances at the human faces on their view screen. Hayes realized with a start that they looked frightened not just of their attackers, but of their would-be rescuers. We have minimal propulsion capability, Aliris finally answered. But our research data is irreplaceable. We cannot risk. I give you my word as a Starfleet officer that we have no interest in your research, Hayes assured her. Our only goal is to ensure your safety. The luminary scientist studied Hayes with those depthless eyes. You are Deathworlders. Stories tell of your violent history, your predatory nature. Hayes had heard the term before, Deathworlders. It was how some spacefaring species referred to races that evolved on planets with harsh conditions, where survival required aggression and competition. Earth, with its earthquake storms and history of apex predators, qualified as a death world by their standards. Today, that nature serves you, Hayes replied evenly. Lieutenant Singh, target the lead Marauder's weapon arrays. Precision, strikes only. Targeting, Singh confirmed. Phasers locked. Fire. Blue beams lanced from the Vigilant's forward arrays, striking the lead Drake with surgical precision. The Marauder's port weapons went dark immediately. Direct hit, Singh reported. Their primary weapon bank is offline. The other two Marauder vessels broke off their pursuit of the Celestia, turning their attention to this new threat. Hayes had expected this reaction. Pirates typically sought easy prey, not even matches. They're targeting us, Singh warned, as the enemy ships adjusted their course. Evasive pattern Delta. Hayes ordered. Ono, take us between those crystal formations. Use them for cover. Navigator Ono's hands flew across her console. Aye, Captain. The Vigilant banked sharply, diving toward a dense cluster of crystalline structures floating within the nebula. The Marauders followed, firing salvos that the Vigilant's shields absorbed with flashes of energy. Shield strength holding at 89%, reported Chief Engineer Yamada. Hayes watched as Ono threaded the patrol ship through increasingly narrow gaps between crystal formations. The Marauders, built for straight-line pursuit and overwhelming firepower, struggled to match the Vigilant's agility. Singh, when we clear the next formation, I want a full spread of torpedoes. Target their engines. Understood, Captain. On the still open channel to the Celestia, Hayes could see Alaris and her crew watching the battle with a mixture of fear and fascination. The Luminari had evolved as a peaceful species, their technological advancement driven by scientific curiosity rather than military necessity. The spectacle of human combat tactics was clearly both alarming and mesmerizing to them. The Vigilant burst from behind a massive crystal structure, spinning on its axis to face the pursuing Marauders. Fire torpedoes, Hayes commanded. 4 photon torpedoes streaked toward the enemy vessels. 2 found their mark, detonating against the lead Drake's engine housing. The ship lurched, venting plasma into the nebula. Direct hit on the lead vessel, Singh reported. Their warp capability is compromised. Captain O'Reilly cut in. I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the damaged Marauder. Oh no. What is it, Ensign? They're arming a warp bomb. If that detonates in this nebula... Hayes didn't need him to finish. A warp bomb was a desperate measure, a controlled antimatter explosion that could tear a hole in subspace. In the crystalline environment of the nebula, the chain reaction could be catastrophic. Voss, warn the Celestia, Hayes ordered. Ono, bring us alongside them. Yamada, prepare to extend our shields around their vessel. As the Vigilant maneuvered to protect the luminary ship, Hayes could see the confusion on Alaris's face. What are you doing? The luminary scientist asked. The Marauders have armed a warp bomb, Hayes explained tersely. We're going to use our shields to help protect your vessel. Our shields are not compatible with yours, Alaris protested. The frequency misalignment could cause... Then help us align them, Hayes challenged. You have 30 seconds before that bomb detonates. For a moment, Alaris hesitated. Then her expression hardened with resolve. Transmitting our shield harmonics now. Chief Engineer Yamada worked frantically at his station. Receiving their data, Captain. Recalibrating our shield emitters to create a synchronized barrier. This has never been tested between our species. It's working now, Hayes replied firmly. On my mark, extend shields to encompass the Celestia. 3, 2, 1 mark. The blue energy field of the Vigilant's shields expanded, stretching to envelop the luminary vessel. At the point of contact, there was a momentary flare as the two technologies negotiated their integration. Then the shield stabilized, forming a single protective bubble around both ships. Shield integration successful. Yamada reported, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. On the view screen, the damaged Marauder Drake's core began to glow with unnatural intensity. "Brace for impact," Hayes shouted. The warp bomb detonated, releasing a shockwave of subspace energy that rippled through the nebula. Crystal formations shattered into billions of glittering fragments as the wave approached the joined ships. When it hit, the combined shields flared brilliantly, straining against the onslaught. "Shield strength dropping," Yamada called out. 70%, 65, stabilizing at 60%. As the energy dissipated, Hayes exhaled slowly. "Damage report." "Minor damage to outer hull plating," Yamada responded. "Nothing critical. The Celestia appears intact as well." On the view screen, Aliris and her crew looked stunned. "You protected us," the chief scientist said, her voice soft with disbelief. "That's why we came," Hayes replied simply. She turned to Singh. "Status of the Marauders." "The lead vessel is crippled but still operational. The other two are retreating toward the densest part of the nebula." Hayes narrowed her eyes. "They're hoping to lose us in the gas cloud." Singh nodded. "The turbulence in that region would make pursuit dangerous. Our sensors would be compromised and the shifting gas pockets could damage our hull." "If they escape, they'll return with reinforcements," Hayes reasoned. "We need to end this now." She looked to Aliris on the view screen. "Can you get your ship to safety?" The luminary scientist nodded. "Our propulsion systems are functional enough to reach the edge of the nebula." "Good. Get clear and wait for us." Hayes turned to her bridge crew. "We're going after those Marauders." First Officer Reed stepped closer to her chair, speaking quietly. "Captain, the risk is necessary," Hayes finished for him. "We can't leave pirates free to prey on research vessels, and we can't allow them to report back about a Starfleet ship operating in this sector." She raised her voice. "Ono, plot pursuit course. Singh, keep weapons ready. All hands prepare for turbulence." The Vigilant broke away from the Celestia, accelerating after the fleeing Marauder vessels. As they approached the heart of the nebula, the view screen filled with swirling clouds of azure gas, shot through with electrical discharges that danced between crystal formations. "Entering the gas cloud in 3, 2, 1, Ono counted down. The ship shuddered as it plunged into the maelstrom. Visibility dropped immediately, the sensors struggling to penetrate the ionized particles that swirled around them. "I'm detecting the Marauders," O'Reilly reported, his voice tight with concentration. 400,000 kilometers ahead, but the readings are fluctuating." A violent tremor ran through the ship as it passed through a particularly dense pocket of gas. Warning lights flashed across several stations. "Hull integrity at 91%, Yamada called out. "The gas is more corrosive than it appears." "Maintain course," Hayes ordered, gripping the arms of her command chair as another tremor shook the bridge. "Singh, can you get a weapons lock?" The tactical officer frowned in concentration. "Attempting to compensate for sensor interference. I have a partial lock on the trailing vessel." "Fire when ready." Singh unleashed a phaser barrage, but the energy beams diffused in the dense gas, barely grazing their target. "Direct hits nearly impossible in these conditions," Singh reported. "The gas is dispersing the phaser energy." Hayes considered their options. "What about torpedoes?" "They might penetrate further before the guidance systems are affected," Singh acknowledged. "But I can't guarantee accuracy." Before Hayes could give the order, a massive crystal formation loomed suddenly in their path. "Evasive action," Hayes shouted. Ono wrenched the ship sideways, narrowly avoiding a collision. The maneuver sent them hurtling into a spiraling current of gas that spun the Vigilant like a leaf in a hurricane. "Stabilizers failing," Yamada reported, his fingers dancing across his console. Attempting to compensate, the ship continued to tumble, the artificial gravity fluctuating wildly. Loose objects flew across the bridge as crew members clung to their stations. "Rerouting power to the inertial dampeners," Yamada called out, his voice barely audible over the groaning of the ship's frame. Gradually, the Vigilant's spin slowed and the deck steadied beneath their feet. Hayes brushed a strand of hair from her face. Status: hull integrity holding, but shield strength down to 40%, Yamada reported. That vortex stripped away our outer shield layer. The Marauders, Hayes asked. O'Reilly studied his readings. They've stopped moving. I think, yes, they're caught in a similar vortex about 100,000 kilometers ahead. Their ships are taking more damage than ours. Their hull design isn't as streamlined. Hayes saw their opportunity. Ono, can you navigate us through this chaos? The navigator's face was grim with determination. Yes, Captain. I believe I can anticipate the flow patterns if I correlate them with the crystal formations. Do it. Singh, prepare full weapons complement once we're in range. As Ono carefully guided the ship through the swirling nebula, Hayes was surprised to see the communication panel light up. Captain Voss reported, "We're being hailed by the Celestia." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Put them through." Aliris's face appeared on the view screen, her expression resolute. Captain Hayes, we've analyzed the nebula currents. The Marauders are trapped in a confluence of 3 major gas streams. If you approach from Vector 718, you can avoid the worst turbulence. Hayes couldn't hide her surprise. I thought you were heading to safety. We were, Aliris confirmed. But we realized we could not leave you to face this danger alone, not after you risked everything for us. We've repositioned to the edge of the cloud and are using our sensors to map the currents. Hayes felt a newfound respect for the luminary scientist. Thank you. Ono, adjust course to Vector 718. Following the luminary's guidance, the Vigilant threaded its way through the treacherous nebula with newfound precision. Within minutes, they had a visual on the Marauder vessels, all 3 now trapped in the convergence of gas currents, their hulls sparking as they were buffeted by the forces around them. We're within weapons range, Singh reported. The Celestia is also moving into position on the far side of the vortex. O'Reilly added surprise evident in his voice. Hayes opened the channel again. Aliris, what are you doing? Providing crossfire support, the luminary scientist replied. Our weapons are not as powerful as yours, but they are precisely calibrated. We can target their engines while you focus on their weapons. A plan formed in Hayes's mind. Singh, coordinate firing solutions with the Celestia. Let's end this. Coordinating now. Singh confirmed a note of admiration in his voice as he communicated with the luminary tacticians. On my mark, Hayes ordered watching as the trapped Marauders struggled to break free from the vortex. 3, 2, 1, fire. The Vigilant unleashed a barrage of phaser fire and torpedoes from one side of the vortex, while the Celestia fired precisely calibrated energy beams from the other. Caught in the crossfire and unable to maneuver, the Marauder flagship took catastrophic damage. Its weapons arrays exploded in a cascade of secondary detonations, and its engines went dark. The 2 smaller Drakes, seeing their leader disabled, fired their emergency thrusters, breaking free from the vortex and disappearing deeper into the nebula. Should we pursue? Singh asked. Hayes shook her head. No. They've learned their lesson and we've neutralized the primary threat. She turned to Voss. Hail the Marauder flagship. The view screen shifted to show the bridge of the pirate vessel. Smoke filled the background, and emergency lighting cast an ominous red glow over everything. A humanoid figure with cybernetic implants covering half his face glared back at them, Commander Rorax, infamous, even on the frontier. You've been defeated, Rorax, Hayes stated flatly. Power down your remaining systems and prepare to be boarded. The pirate commander sneered. I know your Starfleet protocol's human. You'll take me and file reports and I'll be trading information for leniency within a standard month. His augmented eye glowed malevolently. I've played this game before. Perhaps with Starfleet, Hayes acknowledged. But I don't think the Luminary are quite so procedural. She nodded to Voss, who switched the channel to include Aliris. The luminary scientist's normally gentle features had hardened. Your kind has raided 3 of our research outposts in the past cycle, Rorax. 17 of our researchers never returned home. For the first time, Uncertainty flickered across the pirate's face. "I'm transferring you to Luminary custody," Hayes informed him. "What happens next is between you and them." Fear replaced Rorax's bravado. "You can't do that. I demand trial under Federation law." "We're not in Federation space," Hayes reminded him. "And you've committed crimes against the Luminary people. This is their jurisdiction." She gestured for Voss to cut the transmission. As the pirates' protests were silenced, Eliris regarded Hayes with a mixture of surprise and appreciation. "You would entrust him to our justice system?" "It seems only fair," Hayes replied. "He attacked your vessel in your territory." A ghost of a smile touched the Luminary's luminescent features. "Our justice is not cruel, Captain, merely thorough. He will face the consequences of his actions, but his life will be preserved." Hayes nodded. "Then justice will be served." She looked to her crew. "O'Reilly, Singh, assemble a team to secure the Marauder vessel. Yamada, begin repairs to our shields. Voss, inform the Celestia we'll rendezvous outside the nebula once we've secured the prisoners." As her officers moved to execute her orders, Hayes settled back in her command chair, the adrenaline of battle slowly ebbing from her system. The decision she'd made today, disobeying Starfleet protocol, engaging in combat without authorization, forming an impromptu alliance with the Luminari, would have far-reaching consequences. But looking at the Luminary vessel on the view screen, its crew alive, and its mission preserved, she knew she would make the same choices again. Hours later, with the Marauder crew secured, and both the Vigilant and Celestia safely clear of the nebula, Hayes accepted Eliris's invitation to come aboard the Luminary vessel. Accompanied by Lieutenant Voss and Ensign O'Reilly, she stepped through the airlock into a world unlike anything she had experienced before. The interior of the Celestia seemed to glow from within, its architecture flowing in organic curves that defied conventional human design principles. Light emanated from the walls themselves, shifting in subtle patterns that somehow felt both random and purposeful. Even the air smelled different, clean, but with hints of something like cinnamon and ozone. Eliris greeted them in a chamber that appeared to be a combination of meeting room and arboretum with unfamiliar plants growing from pedestals and alcoves. The Luminary scientist had changed from her practical research attire into more formal garments that rippled with changing colors as she moved. "Welcome aboard the Celestia, Captain Hayes," Eliris said, performing a graceful gesture with her hands that Hayes suspected was a traditional greeting. "This is the first time we have hosted humans on one of our vessels." Hayes returned the greeting as best she could. "We are honored by the invitation. Allow me to introduce Lieutenant Samira Voss, my communications officer, and Ensign Jax O'Reilly, who first detected your distress signal." O'Reilly stared in undisguised wonder at their surroundings, while Voss maintained a more diplomatic demeanor, despite her obvious fascination. "Please be seated." Eliris invited, gesturing to curved benches that arranged themselves around a central table as if responding to her thoughts. "Our medical team has prepared refreshments suitable for human physiology." As they sat, another Luminary approached, carrying a tray with various crystalline vessels containing colorful liquids and small, intricate food items. Hayes recognized him as one of the researchers who had been on the bridge during their initial communication. "This is Taylor, our xenobiologist," Eliris introduced. "He has been studying human biological data from our limited exchanges with your species." Taylor set down the tray and offered a respectful nod. "I have attempted to synthesize nutrients compatible with your digestive systems. Nothing here should cause adverse reactions, though the flavors may be unexpected." Hayes smiled. "We appreciate the effort. In Starfleet, we're trained to be adaptable." O'Reilly reached for a small cube that shimmered like mother of pearl. Upon touching his tongue, his eyes widened in surprise. "It tastes like blackberries and mint, but with something else I can't quite identify." "Essence of nala root," Taylor explained. "A staple in our cuisine known for its restorative properties." As they sampled the offerings, an initially awkward atmosphere gradually warmed into genuine cultural exchange. The humans described Earth and its diverse ecosystems, while the luminary shared insights about their home system, a binary star arrangement with unusual radiation patterns that had shaped their evolution. Your species evolved on what we classify as a death world. Taylor noted, his curiosity evident. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, aggressive predators, natural disasters. Yet you thrived. Perhaps because of those challenges, not despite them, Hayes suggested. Adversity can drive adaptation and innovation. Elyrus tilted her head thoughtfully. This may explain certain aspects of human behavior that have puzzled us. Your willingness to take risks, for instance. Like charging into a nebula to rescue strangers, Voss asked with a small smile. Precisely. Elyrus's expression grew more serious. Which brings me to a confession, Captain. The distress signal you intercepted. It was not intended for your receipt. Hayes had suspected as much from Elyrus's initial surprise at their arrival. Who was it meant for? We have allies, another spacefaring species we call the Guardians. The signal was encrypted using quantum algorithms that only they should have been able to decrypt. She looked at O'Reilly with newfound respect. Your ability to break that encryption is unprecedented. O'Reilly blushed under her gaze. I've been studying luminary mathematical principles as a personal project. Your approach to quantum theory is elegant in ways our science is only beginning to understand. Why the secrecy? Hayes asked gently. If you have allies, why has your council maintained such isolation from other species? Elyrus exchanged glances with Taylor before responding. Our history includes a period of exploitation by more aggressive species who coveted our technology. It left deep cultural scars. The Guardians earned our trust over centuries of respectful contact. She paused. But perhaps our caution has turned to paranoia. Perhaps we have judged too quickly, based on evolutionary history, rather than present actions. Prejudice is something all sentient species struggle with, Hayes acknowledged. We make assumptions based on limited information, and those assumptions can be hard to abandon even in the face of contradicting evidence. Yes, Elyrus agreed. We categorized humans as Deathworlders, potentially dangerous and unpredictable. We feared you. And now, Voss asked. A soft glow emanated from Elyrus's skin, what Hayes was beginning to recognize as the luminary equivalent of a smile. Now we see the strength of Deathworlders, tempered by compassion. You risked your vessel, your careers, perhaps, even your lives for people you had never met who had given you no reason to expect friendship. It was the right thing to do, Hayes said simply. Such a human answer, Taylor commented, but there was warmth in his voice, rather than criticism. As their conversation continued into the ship's evening cycle, Hayes felt the weight of history in the making. This impromptu cultural exchange born from crisis might well be the beginning of a new chapter in interstellar relations. When they finally returned to the Vigilant, Hayes found a message waiting from Starfleet Command. Their absence from patrol had been noted, and explanations were demanded. She was composing her response when the ship's sensors detected multiple vessels dropping out of hyperspace near their position. Captain, to the bridge. First Officer Reed's voice came over the intercom. Hayes rushed to the command deck where her officers were already at their stations. Report, she ordered, taking her chair. 3 vessels just arrived, Singh announced. 2 luminary designs we haven't seen before, and 1, he paused in disbelief, 1 Galactic Council diplomatic cruiser. The Galactic Council was the closest thing to an interstellar governing body in this sector of space, a loose confederation of advanced species that coordinated on matters of mutual concern. Earth had been petitioning for membership for decades unsuccessfully. They're hailing us, Voss reported. All 3 ships simultaneously. Hayes straightened her uniform. On screen. The view screen divided into 3 sections. On the left was a luminary male with elaborate adornments, suggesting high rank. In the center was a reptilian humanoid, wearing the distinctive insignia of a council envoy. On the right, to Hayes's shock, was Admiral Werner of Starfleet Command. "Captain Hayes." The Admiral began, his expression unreadable. "It seems you've been busy in our absence." Hayes met his gaze steadily. "Yes, Admiral. I've submitted my report explaining—" "Your report arrived simultaneously with a most unusual communication from the Luminary High Council," Werner interrupted. "Ambassador Theris, perhaps you would care to elaborate?" The Luminary dignitary inclined his head. "Captain Hayes, I am Theris, Chief Ambassador of the Luminary Conclave. We received a detailed account from Aliris and the crew of the Celestia regarding your intervention. Your actions have challenged certain assumptions within our diplomatic corps." The council envoy, a female draconid named Ceres, continued. "The Luminari have petitioned the Council to reconsider Earth's application for membership based on this incident. They argue that humanity has demonstrated the qualities of both strength and restraint that the Council values." Hayes could scarcely believe what she was hearing. We were simply responding to a call for help." "A call not meant for your ears," Ambassador Theris noted, "yet one you answered without hesitation or expectation of reward." His luminescence brightened. "Such actions speak to character in ways that diplomatic overtures cannot." Admiral Werner's stern expression finally softened slightly. "While we cannot officially condone your disregard for chain of command, Captain, I would be remiss not to acknowledge the fortuitous outcome of your decision. The Council has agreed to open formal membership proceedings for Earth," Envoy Ceres announced. "Additionally, the Luminari have requested to establish a permanent diplomatic mission to your planet, the first in our shared history." Hayes glanced at her bridge crew, seeing their astonishment mirrored in each face. "We are honored by this development," she managed to reply with diplomatic poise, despite the emotions welling within her. "There is one more matter," Ambassador Theris added. "Aliris has volunteered to serve as our first envoy to Earth. She believes her experience with your crew makes her uniquely qualified to build bridges between our peoples." Hayes smiled, thinking of the scientist who had overcome her fear to fight alongside them in the crystal maelstrom. "An excellent choice, Ambassador." As the transmission ended, the bridge erupted in suppressed cheers and excited murmurs. First Officer Reed approached Hayes's chair. "Quite the outcome for an unauthorized rescue mission," he observed dryly. Hayes shook her head in amazement. "Sometimes the right action transcends protocol, Thomas. And sometimes it ends careers," he reminded her. "A risk worth taking," she replied without hesitation. "Some rules exist to be broken for the greater good." 3 days later, the Vigilant and Celestia approached Earth space, together the Marauder flagship in tow, as evidence of their alliance. As they prepared to part ways, the Luminary vessel bound for the diplomatic docking station in orbit, the Vigilant for Starfleet headquarters, where a formal inquiry awaited Aliris, requested one final shipboard communication with Hayes. "I wanted to thank you personally, Captain," the Luminary scientist said, her glow particularly vibrant. "Not just for the rescue, but for changing my perspective." "I believe the change was mutual," Hayes replied warmly. "Your courage in that nebula showed me that evolution on a peaceful world doesn't preclude bravery." Aliris nodded. "Perhaps that is the lesson for all our peoples. Deathworlders or not, we are defined by our choices more than our origins." She held up a small crystal pendant. "I have something for you, a token from my world. It is tuned to your bioenergy pattern and will glow when you experience strong emotions." Hayes accepted the gift with genuine appreciation. "I'll treasure it, especially during the upcoming inquiry." "About that," Aliris said with a hint of mischief in her voice, "I believe the entire Luminary delegation plans to attend. Since this is a diplomatic mission of historic importance, we would consider any negative action against you to be unfortunate for future relations." Hayes laughed despite herself. "Are you saying the Luminary are prepared to use diplomatic pressure to protect me from court-martial?" "I'm saying that allies look after each other, Captain," Aliris replied simply. "Is that not why you answered our call?" As their ships parted ways, Hayes returned to her ready room, to compose her final log entry on the incident. She held Illyris's crystal in her palm, watching its gentle pulsation that somehow matched the rhythm of her heartbeat. "Captain's log, supplemental," she began. "We answered a call meant for allies and found friendship in the crucible of crisis. In doing so, we may have changed the course of interstellar relations for generations to come." The crystal glowed brighter in her hand, resonating with the truth of her words and the emotion behind them. Hayes smiled, thinking that in a cold universe filled with danger and uncertainty, compassion might indeed be the warmest weapon in any species' arsenal, and the most powerful force for building bridges across the stars. As the Vigilant approached, Earth Hayes stood on the observation deck, watching the blue planet grow larger in the viewport. Whatever consequences awaited her personally, she knew that humanity's place in the galactic community had been forever altered by one simple decision to help those in need, regardless of differences, regardless of rules. In that moment of clarity, facing an uncertain but hopeful future, she understood that sometimes the greatest adventures began with the courage to answer unexpected calls.